Modern international shipping, a world of computers, sophisticated aids and automation. High technology and global communications have revolutionized traditional ideas of seamanship and navigation. Even so, there are times when no amount of electronic hardware can compensate for human error. Mistakes will always be made. Accidents will always happen. Fortunately, few masters will ever be involved in a collision, but if and when they are, the consequences can be devastating. And the actions and decisions taken by a master at the time can be crucial to determining the outcome. The usual understanding of a collision is a contact of two ships with one or both sustaining damage. But the term can also refer to many other situations. For example, impact between a ship and a fixed object, a pier, breakwater, or a wreck. Whatever form a collision takes, the consequences can never be to anyone's benefit. At best, a shipowner may be found innocent of any wrong action, but it may take years of litigation to prove it. Even then, he will not gain from the situation. The negligent party only has to put the injured party in the same position financially as if the collision had not occurred. At worst, a shipowner will be held to blame. He will lose substantial amounts of money, his reputation will suffer, and his insurance premiums are likely to increase. In both cases, schedules will be disrupted, large amounts of paperwork will be involved, and there will inevitably be irrecoverable hidden costs. In most collision cases, the question of who is to blame will not have a clear-cut answer. Often, if two ships collide, each shipowner will take steps to recover from the other. In these circumstances, the master has a vital role to play. As the man on the spot, he can provide the key evidence, evidence that will support his owner's claim while minimizing any claim made by the owners of the other vessel. The fact that a shipowner may be held to blame for a collision is based on the concept of vicarious liability. This simply means that the owner is liable for the actions of his employees, the master, officers and crew. Negligence leading to a collision may not always be negligence in navigation. Failure to equip or repair a ship may be the cause. Whatever the circumstances, the burden of proof is always on the party seeking to obtain damages. So, in each case, the master should take those actions which will support his owner's interests and offer the best defense against counterclaims. Although there is a general obligation for any seaman to exercise due skill and care, there are forgivable exceptions. One example is when mistakes are made in the agony of the moment, when there is no time or opportunity to make a reasoned judgment as to what action to take to avoid collision. In collision cases, a master who can show that his actions were taken in these circumstances will often not be held to be negligent, even if his actions were subsequently held to have been wrong. In 1973, the Elisa F was travelling along the Thames estuary. Another ship, the Homer, appeared travelling in the opposite direction some 2 miles away. The Elisa F altered course, swinging to starboard. The Homer assumed that she was still following her original course and continued to steam straight into her path. As the two ships approached, the Homer sent out a VHF message stating that she was altering course to port. This would allow the Elisa F to pass on her starboard side. The Elisa F sounded 2 short blasts and replied that she was altering course sharply to port. But it was too late. The Homer struck the Elisa's starboard bow. The court concluded that the Homer's master was entirely to blame. He should have realized that the Elisa F had altered course. The Elisa's master, on the other hand, had made his decisions in the agony of the moment. So despite a subsequent appeal, he was not held to be negligent in his actions. Another important legal principle is the concept of the reasonable man. In many cases, an error can be traced to a breach of agreed rules of navigation. But in other circumstances, the question of negligence is decided on the basis of what a prudent seaman, a reasonable man, would have done. Normally, in cases involving two ships, liability is apportioned according to fault. If it's impossible to establish different degrees of fault, both parties will be held equally liable. In other circumstances, blame for a collision may be divided in a simple mathematical ratio, for example, a 75% to 25% split. There are two navigational errors that the courts are particularly severe on. The first obvious example is excessive speed. Failure to slacken speed in dangerous situations will always be detrimental to any defense, particularly if the master is navigating in unfamiliar waters or restricted visibility. A second common cause of collisions is failure to maintain a proper lookout. In this case, the Oar Prince had run aground on the banks of the river Schelde. Another ship, the Sabina, was anchored further upriver. She'd been incapacitated by a steering gear failure. Late at night, both ships were receiving attention from tugs with the aim of continuing their journeys. The crews of each vessel were so preoccupied with their own problems that they failed to notice what the other was doing. So, while the Sabina swung round into mid-river, the Oar Prince, with her attendant tugs, continued towards her. Instead of waiting until the Sabina had completed her turn, the Oar Prince tried to edge through the gap between her stern and the river's edge. The Sabina could have checked her swing until the Oar Prince had passed, but failed to do so. The two ships collided and both sustained serious damage. Verdict: the two vessels were equally to blame. The cause of the collision was the failure on both sides to maintain a proper lookout. If a ship is traveling at excessive speed, or in cases of bad lookout, most courts will attach some blame to its owner, whatever the other circumstances of the collision may be. The courts will also take a dim view of a master who navigates with inadequate or outdated charts. In 1969, the fairway leading to Nagoya Harbor was extended seawards by a mile. 2 years later, a motor ship, the Shavit, was approaching this harbor channel at speed. The Shavit's charts of the area dated from 1967 and did not show the extended fairway. Her master saw another ship, the Troll River, pass the buoys which he thought marked the end of the channel. He assumed the Troll River would immediately turn out to sea. She didn't turn. Instead, she continued towards the end of the fairway. The Shavit cut across her bow, and the two ships collided. In court, the Shavit's owners were held to be solely to blame for the collision. Failure to carry proper charts had caused the accident, and this factor alone was considered to be more important than any other adverse circumstances at the time. The current collision regulations entered into force in 1977, with minor amendments in 1983. They were drawn up by the International Maritime Organization, the IMO, and they replaced the earlier 1960 collision regulations. The IMO regulations reflect the technical advances made in shipping in recent years and define the principles of good navigation, including provision for safe speed, maintaining a proper lookout, and the movement of ships in traffic separation schemes. They provide specific guidelines for situations in which collisions are most likely to occur. Of course, these are a standard part of a master's training. However, taking the right steps to avoid an accident cannot guarantee a safe passage. That's why a master must be prepared for the worst. He must know what steps should be taken after a collision has occurred, whether or not he is in any way to blame. The potential losses inflicted by a shipping collision can be many and varied. They may amount to far more than the repair of physical damage. Liabilities could arise from death or injury, claims by a crew for loss of wages or lost personal effects. There could be salvage claims, cargo claims, damages for detention during repair, and heavy fines. In a collision, some or all of these factors will be involved. So to protect his interests and those of his shipowner, the most important thing a master should do is get expert assistance as fast as possible. The principal characters in the subsequent drama are the hull broker. He is the vital link between the owner and the underwriters insuring the ship. The acting solicitor. His role can be crucial. He will gather the on-the-spot evidence which may determine the outcome of a court case months or years later. The average adjuster. He'll be required to assist the shipowner in presenting a claim to the hull underwriters. The Classification Society surveyor. Where the ship has sustained damage affecting seaworthiness, repairs need to be specified to put it back in class. The local P&I Club representative. For the master, the most crucial person to inform quickly, whether directly or via his owners. He is the man on the spot and can therefore give immediate advice and assistance to the master. There is another vital reason why the P&I Club must be immediately involved. The P&I Club will normally cover 25% of a ship's liabilities to the other vessel, with the other 75% spread among a number of underwriters. The P&I Club, as, in effect, the single most interested party, will be responsible for posting a financial security to cover potential claims from the other ship. We shall see later the potential consequences of a delay in this being done. As soon as possible, the hull underwriters or the P&I Club, and sometimes both, will appoint a surveyor to assess the damage to the ship. The surveyor will also attend the other ship involved to note her damage as well. This is an essential protection against excessive counterclaims. A survey on the other vessel is generally known as a without prejudice or WP survey. It requires the permission of the other shipowner to go on board, but this is normally achieved by offering reciprocal rights of access to their surveyor. As well as establishing what damage has occurred, the surveyor can draw conclusions about the speed and direction of navigation before impact. This evidence can be central to deciding who's to blame. Most importantly, it reinforces the need for a master and crew to be entirely truthful about the circumstances of a collision.